That backwards.
Hello, my name is Morgan Pyle. I am a student of Miss Varblow of the course of Intro to Education. You'll have to forgive me if I'm kind of quiet. My voice has been going out the past couple of days. I will be covering for my project, and I was assisted by one Lauren, Miss Nell Noddings. This is my sister. She will be assisting me. Alyssa, say hello.
Say hello.
It's implied. Anyways, Miss Nodding's back a bit, and yes, this is a accurate replica. She looked exactly like this, don't question it. She was born in January 19th of 1929, and she is still around. She's quite old. She had a husband of 60 years. He has recently died, though. So sad. Not so close to my face. Now, being an important philosopher and contributor to the field of education, she does in fact have a long list of credentials that qualify her to be so. Beginning with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and physical science attained from Montclair State College. Also, she has a master's degree in mathematics. This was obtained from Rutgers University. Finally, and her crowning achievement, is a PhD of education from the Stanford Graduate School of Education, which she later joined. She actually acted as the Associate Dean of the Stanford Graduate School of Education for 4 years. Now, other personal points. She is a woman who is unusually possessed of a rather large family, including 10 of her own children, 39 grandchildren, and 20 great-grandchildren. Very large family. Furthermore, she is a well-known feminist. Also, one of the key contributing factors in her philosophies and theories is her feminist background. In reference to her contributions to philosophy, she has written, both by herself and in collaboration, over 20 written works. So she's been very busy those whole 85 years. Out of these works, some of the most notable are Educating for Intelligent Belief or Unbelief, her personal philosophy of education, and one we will be covering in this discussion, Caring, a feminine approach to ethics and moral education. Once again, feminist. Now, her work is specifically catered and most notable in the field of relational ethics. This is ethics within the field of, and emphasis on, relationships themselves. Now, within this, she denotes one of the most important things to having a successful relationship is the act of caring. Now, while she says there is no way to truly describe what constitutes caring, she does lay out 3 key points that are necessary for any form of caring to work. The first one, in the act of the carer, well, the first thing is you need someone who is caring and someone who is being cared for. The caring person has to exhibit 2 traits, and that is engrossment, there we go, engrossment and motivational displacement. The person cared for simply needs to reciprocate the caring that they are receiving. Reciprocate the care that they're receiving. A reaction, that is. Now, out of these, to explain engrossment, everything's backwards, I forget. Engrossment is that the person caring for has to be engrossed within the person being cared for. That's not to say complete obsession, but they have to be aware of the person's needs, desires, thought processes. They have to be engrossed enough with the person to know how best to care for them. A good example of this would be the relationship between, say, a doctor and a patient. If the doctor is not engrossed within the patient, then the doctor does not know the best way to care for the patient, either by physical or medicine or what kind of surgery they could need. Likewise, in the field of education, if a teacher, the person caring for, is not engrossed within the student, the teacher does not know the best way to teach the student. Furthermore, the person caring has to exhibit motivational displacement. That is exactly what that sounds like. They have to put aside their own personal motivations and goals to help the person being cared for, or, in the case of educator, the student. Lost my train of thought. I apologize. Another example of this is how motivational displacement can go awry. Motivational displacement has to be tempered with engrossment, otherwise, the person who is exhibiting the motivational displacement could zero in on something that the person being cared for doesn't actually need. Finally, the reaction. The person being cared for has to exhibit in some way, either positive or negative, that the caring is in fact having an effect. Otherwise, it's all for naught. Likewise, back to the doctor and patient example. The patient has to show some kind of physical sign or mental sign that the treatment the doctor has prescribed is or is not working. So any methods can be taken to either correct it or continue treatment as is needed. I don't need that first anymore. Now, for her contribution in the field of philosophy, it is all about caring and also wants versus needs. Now, this is contribution to the field of education, with the emphasis on needs as opposed to wants. Now, we all know we all have wants and we have needs, but as an educator, and as anyone really, you need to be able to distinct between what is a want and what is a need. Miss Noddings has laid out in 4 points what differentiates a want from a need and how a want could even possibly become a need. That is these 4 steps. For a want to be considered a need, it has to exhibit the 4 criteria, and the first is stability and intensity. The want has to be a stable and intense desire over a long period of time. That is, if I was to wake up the next day and suddenly want a pair of shoes, it's not a need. If I wake up at the same time every morning for months on end wanting a specific pair of shoes, very much so, then it is possibly a need. The other is the needs. The want has to represent a means to an end. That is to say, I want to get on a roof. I'm going to need a ladder because it represents my means to an end. The other is, in the case of a person being cared for by a person caring, the want or need has to be within the power of the person caring for. It has to be within their power to give. That is, if I was to ask somebody $1 million and they have no power to give it to me, I probably don't need it that bad. And finally, the person who exhibits the want, and for it to be considered a need, that person has to be willing to help. They have to be willing to contribute towards achieving this need. That is, again, if I was to ask somebody for $1 million and they say, I will give you $1 million if you work for me, and I'm not willing to do the work, then that is simply a want, not a need, because I'm not willing to contribute what is needed to get that need. Now, the impact this has on the field of education, in my opinion, and how all this ties together, is the teacher's interaction with the student has to exhibit care for the student, engrossment, motivation, and displacement, to be able to know what that student wants and needs are. Once the wants and needs are clearly separated by motivational displacement and engrossment, the teacher can best determine how to teach that student, possibly even through a good example is the multiple intelligences we've learned about in our lectures. If the teacher is not engrossed within the student, they don't know which of the motivational or which of the multiple intelligences that student exhibits, and therefore will not know the best way to teach that student. And that is, in a nutshell, what Miss Nodding believes, her contributions to philosophy and education. Thank you, and have a good day.